just very happy to be here. I have little memories from the Samatha Centre over the years. I think shortly after you got your new building, new centre in Manchester. I'd just been teaching at the Buddhist Society of Manchester University, and I went there and I was going to give a talk, and then it happened that there was another monk, a very lovely a Burmese monk, and we ended up having a meal together, and I didn't give the talk, and this lovely Burmese monk gave this incredibly arousing talk about being monks and nuns, which was so surprising for me, because not that I was depressed particularly, but I was like many of us, cynical and critical and negative, and having dived into the reality of the Four Noble Truths, first time in particular, I was kind of swimming in dukkha and, practicing was waiting for the end of dukkha. And metta was about the last thing I wanted to do in those days, just give me something negative I can shoot on. I really love it, So the idea of having to hear a monk for about an hour telling the wonders of being monks and nuns and the great blessings of being a monk in the summer night, I said, isn't it wonderful, how the Asian people can just have so much faith in what they are doing, and we're just there, hanging in there, wondering how on earth we ended up there, and not that I would have had want to do anything else, but just to see the sort of predicament we are part of. We are part of, in a way, a culture which is very, critical by just the fact that we are educated to learn how to discriminate, from things, and how to learn many and to be really have an incredible intellectual baggage and so on, and so that makes us very much thinking creatures. So it's not always easy to really go into the mind that is not really caught up in thinking or caught up in identification with thinking. It is a mind that can actually have faith. So this is, and then the other little image, which are memory, because I remember, is a gentleman who is actually here. I was visiting my family in the south of France, in Provence, and one day, who turns up? A very nice gentleman who comes on a bicycle and tell me he's bringing me some dana for the meal. And I said, this is just unbelievable. In a place where there was absolutely no Buddhist, nobody, but he happened to be a friend, or a common friend of my family. And through a common friend of my family, he came to visit me with this offering of a part of a meal. So, and then he told me he was a student of Usha. I said, oh, I know Usha very well. I didn't know her very well, but had a lovely heart connection with her and her children and so on, because I'd stayed at her house a bit earlier before his visit. So it's always, when I was reflecting on what I was going to say today, I was just thinking what a wonderful thing to celebrate the extraordinary event of 25 years of building, so with patience. I'm sure we needing with a great patience and a great strength and great sort of chanda, as the Buddha calls it, great zest, and maybe not so much great zest at time, maybe just desperate and bored. But there we are. The result is a lovely, beautiful center and a very nice group of practitioners. I visited recently the Manchester group at your centre, Samatha Centre, and one thing I noticed, even though we may have different emphasis in our practice, different views and opinions about our practice, different ideas, different standards, or whatever it is, a different way of practicing, one thing which is lovely, it's a sort of, in a way, the brightness and the radiance and the kind of a sense of comfort in the heart that even though we may not be using similar methods or similar techniques or similar tools or whatever, it doesn't matter really. The most important thing is we are here to brighten the heart, strengthen the heart, bringing the heart into a space where wisdom can manifest, clarity can manifest, insight can manifest, and realization of the end of suffering can manifest. So when this venerable monk was talking just before me. I said, "Oh, he's stealing my talk," because I was going to talk about Foundable Truth. But I thought, never mind. I will talk about an aspect of the Foundable Truth, because this is very much the teaching of Lobos Medo, and from the very beginning, the suffering and the end of suffering, which is one of the famous quotes of the Buddha. I teach, in one nutshell, all I teach is the recognition of suffering, and knowing the end of suffering. So this is such a simple, you could say, a simple presentation of his teaching, a very reduced way of defining the path of practice, which is, when you consider the vast amount of literature and teachings and commentaries on the text, on the teaching of the Buddha. But yet, I've been practicing for many, many years, and I'm always amazed how, people say to me, "Oh, but, what is the difference, between what you have learned 30 years ago and now?" I said, well, when I come back in the present moment, there's no difference. It's just the same. Here and now. I'm here and now. I'm seeing here and now. And here and now. And here and now. Where's the Samatha group and the Amaravati group and the American group and the Western group and the Eastern group? Here and now. If you really have right view and right understanding, here and now. What needs to be done? Nothing much. Seeing, knowing, and realizing the end of whatever comes across the mind, not the brain, but just the mind, the whole experience we have of what we call the mind, and the mind that is also able to be aware and mindful, and that the dimension of the mind where you can see clearly what comes through, what goes through the screen of your mind, and what you write. As one teacher in Thailand told me many years ago, he said, "Be careful what you write on your screen." It's like Ram Dass, I remember many years ago saying, "Be careful what you want, because you will get it, except not in the package that you hoped for." Ram Dass, probably some of you know him. Yes, to go back to the Foundable Truth. Very simple teaching, isn't it? Yet, as Bhante was saying, the First Noble Truth has to be seen, and has been seen. So it has to got to do the work, and has been seen. We finish the work about a particular condition, let's say, and then the second, has to be let go of, and has been let go of. So it's two stages. One, we've got to do the work. Second, we finished. And the third is about we have to realize it. It has to be realized, and we have realized it. Which means basically we have completely let go of that particular identification to these conditions, to the particular condition of the mind-body. So we have realized the peace of cessation, Nirodha. And the fourth noble truth has to be developed, and has been developed. So there is, in a way, you could say, there is becoming. There is, there is a path that we are treading, and there is this aspect of chanda, virya, and having to develop. I mean, it's not really becoming in that sense. Developing bhavana. So the development, the path has to be developed and has been developed. So there is something that go from one point to another. There's a development, a gradual teachings. And my memory is not so good to give you this wonderful quote about how the discipline, Dhamma Vinaya, it's a gradual process, just like the sea, gradually, doesn't kind of drop straight away, the gradual mode. So the fourth noble truth is about this path has to be developed, the truth of the Four Noble Truths has to be developed and has been developed. So that has been developed means that's the end of suffering, the end of our problems, if we call them problems. They don't have to be called problems, just life. Just living, just being alive. It's not a problem. It's just what happens, you know, when we are alive, when we take birth. This is what happens. We have a body, we get born, we have this kind of screaming for several months, and having to be fed by people, and having to walk around, and people go goo goo gaga and all the rest of it, and probably as a little boy or girl we hate it. And then we grow up, and then we get teenagers and adults and older, middle-aged, and then we get old, and then we die. So this is life. And the teaching of the Buddha just bring it into the right angle. It gives us a right perspective. It's called right view. And right view, it has to do with, knowing life as it is. Knowing that there is birth, there is growing up, there is aging, there is death. There is impermanence, there is dukkha, there is pain. And there is, the realization that all of life is not ours. It's not us. We're not this body. We're not this mind. We're not these thoughts. We're not these feelings. We are not these moods. We are not these stories of our mind. And that is the whole path of practice, is to slowly, gently, deeply realize those truths. They don't come straight away. It's not like a Big Bang realization, even though there are lots of teaching about a Big Bang enlightenment nowadays, where you're supposed to be enlightened on the foot of the teacher, or just drinking something, or just, you get a little bit of samatha, a little bit of, a little bit of brightness in your mind, and oh my God, I must have realized Nibbana, oh, I'm enlightened now, that's it. Finish my problem until somebody steps on your toes and oops, you've lost all your samadhi and all your good intention and all your good, all the wonderful perception you had for a few minutes, this kind of radiant screen that makes the world look so beautiful and so wonderful and so happy and friendly. And it's like practicing metta, for example. When you practice metta, when I was a younger nun, I used to practice metta. But I was full of anger, so when I practiced a metta, I would just, pump up some kind of thoughts on metta in my brain and radiate in the forest of chittas, metta to everything I could, think of. And then I would go back to the nuns' cottage, and I would always meet the nuns that drove me nuts and send me in the first place to the forest of chittas to practice metta. She was my motivating force behind this metta practice. Of course, should I really bow to her and say thank you for being here? But in those days, I was not as mature as this, So it was harder for the ego, the me that think it knows it all, So I have my clock not too far. Okay, a few more minutes. So for just to go back to this teaching of the Four Noble Truths, I'd like to talk to you about a presentation of those truths, which are really nothing new, but it's interesting how we don't hear it very often presented in that way. It's a famous teacher in Thailand, and when I was in Thailand, I was learning Thai at some point in the forest. I was on my own. And somebody gave me a book from a funeral of their brother, and they had published a book in memory of their brother. And I was kind of translating Thai into English, very slowly. And I liked the book because it had just small text, so it wasn't like 3 pages or something, or 5 or 10, just small passages of teachings. And as I was translating, I was amazed, discovering little by little, the mind that goes out is samudaya. It's a cause of suffering. The result of the mind that goes out is dukkha, suffering. The mind that sees the mind is magga, the path. And the result of the mind that sees the mind is nirodha, cessation. Do you want me to repeat? Yeah? Okay. I even learned it in Thai, but I'm not going to impress you too much. It was in Thai actually. So the mind that there may be some alternative, alternate translation, but this is just direct from the Thai. The mind that goes out is samudaya, the cause of suffering, which is defined as attachment to sensual desires, attachment to becoming and non-becoming, bhavatanha, vibhavatanha. And then the result of the mind that goes out is dukkha, suffering, getting what one doesn't want, not getting what one wants, etc. 5 khandhas, attachment to the 5 khandhas. The mind seeing the mind, okay, chitta tihen chit, chit tihen chit. The mind seeing the mind is a path. We wonder what the path, nobody for path, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which way I am, 1, 2, 3. The mind that sees the mind is a path. And the result of the mind that sees the mind is nirodha, cessation, the end of suffering, the end of dukkha, cessation of dukkha. So, I'd just like to leave you on this, and I want to thank everybody for receiving us here and inviting us. And also, I have never met this gentleman. I don't want to misspell your name. I know you're Nai, but I don't remember the second name. For being such a powerful force a powerful seed into that has borne such a beautiful fruit for everybody, for the blessings of so many people. So, and thank you for listening.